This is a sub-article of Islamic economic jurisprudence and Muslim world. Between the 8th and 12th centuries, the Muslim world developed many advanced concepts, techniques and use in production, investment, finance, economic development, taxation, property use such as hawala, an early informal value transfer system, Islamic trusts known as WAQF, systems of contract relied upon by merchants, a widely circulated common currency, checks, promissory notes, early contracts, bills of exchange, advanced agricultural techniques, higher literacy rates, and enlightened capture and use of slaves. Specific Islamic concepts involving money, property, taxation, charity included zakat, gara, and riba. These concepts, like others in Islamic law and jurisprudence, came from the prescriptions, anecdotes, examples, and words of the Prophet, all gathered together and systematized by commentators according to an inductive, casuistic method. Sometimes other sources such as al-Urf, al-Aql or al-Ijma were employed. In addition, Islamic law has developed areas of law that correspond to secular laws of contracts and torts. Self-described Islamic economics emerged in the 1940s, and as of 2004, Islamic banks have been established in over 70 countries and interest has been banned in 3: Pakistan, Iran and the Sudan. Early Islamic economics. One economic policy of the Prophet in early Islam was a ban on charging fees and rents and a ban on permanent buildings in the market of Medina. Only tents were allowed there. This is said to have helped poor traders. Social responsibility in commerce. Social responsibility in commerce was stressed in Islam. As a result, the development of Islamic banks and Islamic economics did not allow usury. No interest rate was allowed, and investors were not permitted to escape the consequences of any failed venture. All financing was equity financing, in not letting borrowers bear all the risk, cost of a failure, and extreme disparity of outcomes between partners is thus avoided. Ultimately, this serves a social harmony purpose. Muslims also could not and cannot finance any dealings in forbidden goods or activities, such as wine, pork, gambling, etc. Thus ethical investing is the only acceptable investing, and moral purchasing is encouraged. Legal institutions. Hawala agency. The hawala, an early informal value transfer system, has its origins in classical Islamic law, and is mentioned in texts of Islamic jurisprudence as early as the 8th century. Hawala itself later influenced the development of the agency in common law and in civil laws such as the aval in French law and the avalo in Italian law. The words aval and avalo were themselves derived from hawala, the transfer of debt, which was not permissible under Roman law but became widely practiced in medieval Europe, especially in commercial transactions, was due to the large extent of the trade conducted by the Italian cities with the Muslim world in the Middle Ages. The agency was also an institution unknown to Roman law, as no individual could conclude a binding contract on behalf of another as his agent. Quote, in Roman law, the contractor himself was considered the party to the contract, and it took a second contract between the person who acted on behalf of a principal and the latter in order to transfer the rights and the obligations deriving from the contract to him. On the other hand, Islamic law and the later common law had no difficulty in accepting agency as one of its institutions in the field of contracts and of obligations. In general, WAQF trust. The WAQF in Islamic law, which developed in the medieval Islamic world from the 7th to 9th centuries, bears a notable resemblance to the English trust law. Every WAQF was required to have Waqf Mutawallis (QADI) and beneficiaries. Under both a WAQF and a trust, property is reserved, and its usufruct appropriated, for the benefit of specific individuals, or for a general charitable purpose. The corpus becomes inalienable. Estates for life in favor of successive beneficiaries can be created, and, without regard to the law of inheritance of the rights of the heirs, and continuity is secured by the successive appointment of trustees or mutawallis. The only significant distinction between the Islamic WAQF and English trust was the express or implied reversion of the WAQF to charitable purposes, when its specific object has ceased to exist, though this difference only applied to the WAQF Ali rather than the WAQF carry. Another difference was the English vesting of legal estate over the trust property in the trustee, though the trustee was still bound to administer that property for the benefit of the beneficiaries. Quote, "In this sense the role of the English trustee therefore does not differ significantly from that of the mutawali." The trust law developed in England at the time of the Crusades, during the 12th and 13th centuries, was introduced by crusaders who may have been influenced by the WAQF institutions they came across in the Middle East. After the Islamic WAQF law and madrasa foundations were firmly established by the 10th century, the number of Bimaristan hospitals multiplied throughout Islamic lands. In the 11th century, every Islamic city had at least several hospitals. The WAQF trust institutions funded the hospitals for various expenses, including the wages of doctors, ophthalmologists, surgeons, chemists, pharmacists, domestics and all other staff, the purchase of foods and drugs, hospital equipment such as beds, mattresses, bowls and perfumes, and repairs to buildings. The WAQF trusts also funded medical schools, and the revenues covered various expenses such as the maintenance and the payment of teachers and students.